Welcome back to another round of Bases Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, colleague, relative, associate, enemy, all that good stuff. Big up to any new subscribers who are tuned in, locked in. If you're not a subscriber, yeah, please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you don't, obviously no obligations to that. Now, this is gonna be a two-part special. I don't often do two parts, but there's a lot of fights to get through, and I want to kind of give every fight as much attention as it deserves. I can't do that with a stacked card of 8 different fights plus a special fight that's taking place on Boxing Day. So yeah, this one is gonna be my first 4, and then the next video is gonna be the last 5, and that one will come out tomorrow. So without further ado, Day of Reckoning, Bases Picks. Let's get into the picks. So the first fight I'm gonna get into is Frank Sanchez versus Junior Farr. Now, there are several fights on this card whereby they are either quote unquote mismatches or they are just not very appealing fights. Now this one, I have a feeling it will be quasi competitive at the start, but it might be very boring as well. If we remember when Junior Farr faced Joseph Parker in, where was it? I think that fight took place in New Zealand. That fight was an absolute stinker. Junior Farr was extremely negative in that fight. He tried to keep it long at range, and anytime Joseph Parker came anywhere close to range, he would sort of just grab him, tie him up, lean, and make the referee have to separate them. And Joseph Parker wasn't able to get any work off, and I think that was the last time before he actually got some chips removed from his elbows, which he kept having splints in. So we've seen obviously Junior Farr, at that time he was an unbeaten fighter. He never knew how to lose, so I guess he was trying his hardest to just make it a rough and an unsightly event. Fast forward from there, you then see Junior Farr get brutally taken out in, I think it was a round of by all people, Lucas Brown. Now it was a punch. I think there was one punch that landed towards the back of the head initially, and then another punch which just scrambled his senses, just took him out cold. Now no one predicted that Lucas Brown was going to beat him, so that was the biggest upset of all upsets at the time in sort of that lower level, sort of in the lower leagues. He has since rebounded from that, but it was a very nondescript rebound and no one particularly watched that or cared for it. So he's definitely the B-side in this fight. You also have Frank Sanchez, who, while is a very talented heavyweight, he's also the type of heavyweight that flatters to deceive a lot of the time. He's, I guess, tried to be a bit more knockout friendly, a bit more sort of entertaining-ish as of late, but most probably every time you see Frank Sanchez, he's very content to sort of box, move, change the angle, counter punch, and then sort of just kind of go to a very measured, a very controlled decision. He's very much a pure boxer that likes to control the pace and the tempo. And in the last fight he had, surprisingly enough, when he did try to get very aggressive against, again, nondescript opposition, because he has fought some okay guys, but he's just pretty much been treading water on the PBC undercards as of late. But yeah, in the very last fight he did get aggressive, and as such he ended up, walking onto right hand, which did wobble him and cause him some problems for about 10-15 seconds of that round. He came back, obviously, then scored the knockout eventually, but there were some warning signs there, hence maybe why he likes to box more on the back foot, control the tempo, and be the counter puncher. Now in this fight, without going in totality to how I see it playing out realistically, Junior Farr's advantage is the fact that he's got the reach and he's got the height on Frank Sanchez. So if he wants to make this a very boring and laboured affair, he can try to work off the back foot, pushing the jab and forcing Frank Sanchez to have to sort of step forward and engage, and then just make things very messy on the inside. But I do feel like Frank Sanchez is the quicker of the two. So with that being said, every time that Farr decides that he's gonna at least try to initiate a jab, probably in the center of the ring, I reckon he will get beat to the punch by Frank Sanchez. So I feel like after some sustained pressure, some sustained rounds of damage, you know, he's gonna hit that stab to the body that he loves to do to stop Farr from moving, which, to be fair, isn't his strongest suit anyway. I do see that between round 6 and round 9, I can see Frank Sanchez getting enough of a wary Farr in front of him to the point that he can then sort of unload a couple of heavier shots, probably have him backed up into a corner behind the high guard, have him take a couple of unanswered shots and have the refs step in. So the prediction for this one will be Frank Sanchez within sort of around 6 to 9 stoppage in the corner, probably by referee, TKO. That's the prediction. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so next we've got former IBF and current Ring Magazine cruiserweight champion Jarrell Opetaia taking on Ellis Zorro, who I believe holds a WBO international or continentals title at present. He's got the WBO European title at the moment. That's the right one. Now, we all know the situation with the IBF that's taken place. I did hear that they tried to, you know, sort of get that whole situation smoothed over, but the IBF decided not to budge, which was, you know, asinine and extremely foolish and crass. That being said, you know, that IBF belt has been vacated. They are that team Tasman Fighters is now just the Ring Magazine recognized champ, but that means that they are the recognized #1 in the division, and that is the belt which most people hold most prestigious above all the other sanctioning bodies. So he is still the man to beat. I just hope that, you know, moving forward, the unifications are able to be made with whomever wins this match. Now, with regards to both styles, you've got Ellis Zorro, who is very much a boxer puncher, and you've got Jai, who's very much a boxer puncher. So they both have a similar base style. Ellis Zorro is actually, he's quite quick. He was an athlete in his younger years. And I've also said, like I think a few other people have noted, he's got deceptive power, even though his KO ratio doesn't necessarily show that. He's 17-0 with 7 KOs, but when you sort of look, you have to also bear in mind there's a lot of 4-rounders, a lot of 3-rounders as well from the Ultimate Boxer tournament that he had. So a lot of those fights aren't complete sort of, 8-rounders, 10-rounders, etc. So when you kind of compare that, you say, okay, but we've seen him, have some fairly brutal knockouts. I mean, the Hosea Burton one comes to mind. That's one that I need to consider for knockout of the year. So you can tell that he does have enough pop to keep someone honest, and he's definitely got it to hurt them if he's had them sort of worn down or, they switch off. He's a pretty good counter puncher, and he's got some decent body punching as well, especially his left hook to the body. That's one of his better attributes. One of his key weaknesses is that he doesn't keep his hands high after he exchanges, after he sort of throws the lead jab out or the backhand or the left hook to the body. There will usually be at least 2 seconds before a hand comes back to block the side of the head. He also, does carry the typical Philly shell-ish type stance at times, especially when he's in transitions. All of that is going to be a problem for someone like for him when it comes to Jarrell Opetaia, who I believe is probably quicker than him. Not by much, but you don't need to be when Jai's also got the timing down. They're going to be fencing with the lead hand a lot, so it's going to be about who can necessarily win the lead hand battle. But the issue is going to be Jai, as we know, will usually step in to his jab and throw the backhand as quick as possible in fights. Now, he has said that he wants to show more of his boxing skills in this one, but that might just mean that he wants to show that he can maneuver his opponent into a more dangerous position quickly to let that backhand go. But you can kind of tell just by him, the way he is, his mindset, he will adjust in the ring if he needs to, but I don't feel like he can be disciplined enough to just box with someone for a couple rounds. I really feel like he'll probably just try to open them up from the very first moment he has an opportunity to, and then from there it's kill mode, it's seek and destroy. And you know, if he obviously needs to get, if it maybe it might take a couple rounds more than usual, but ultimately that's the goal. I just want to get them to that point that I see the vulnerability and then I'm like a shark, rather than, you know, just breaking them down slowly. He's not a breakdown kind of person. He's a, I'm gonna hurt you and I'm gonna hurt you badly and you're going out. He's that type of fighter. Now, in his last two fights specifically, he has caused massive facial damage to his opponents, specifically noses. He broke Bradis's nose, I think it was in the second round of their fight, and I think he broke Jordan Thompson's nose in the first or the second round of their fight. So it seems to be one of his tactics is to go for the nose early to affect his opponent's breathing, because if they can't breathe properly, then they can't move properly. Everything slows down and he gets hit, and he seems to be like a piston with that backhand to the nose. So that's something that ultimately Ellis is going to have to look out for. Now I know both guys, so I have I guess I've got a vested interest in both of their well-being coming out of this fight, but outside of that, it makes me, I guess, a bit more impartial as to how I see the fight going and ultimately who I would like to win. But I've always been a person where, look, I can root for somebody and still pick against them. In this one, I'm not rooting for either person apart from for health and safety. But I do feel like they're going to have a pretty good chess match for maybe 2 to 3 rounds. I feel like Ellis is going to put on like the performance of his life to try and just stay in there and hang with Jai and trying to not get caught from those angles that Jai does love to shoot out, especially, you know, with that southpaw stance. But I do think that from about round 3 or 4 onwards, the mental fatigue of having to basically stay safe, to try and counter, to try and stay with in terms of pressure, footwork and everything, is going to start to drain on Ellis. This is a level he's not been at before. There's going to be tricks he's never experienced in the ring, and he has been hurt by lesser opponents. In his very last fight, I remember he was visibly rocked quite badly from a very basic come forward guy, just because he switched off and got caught up top where instead of defending as he should have been. The Hosea Burton fight, he was losing that up until he won it. There's been fights like that. The Dex Spellman fight, he had moments in there where he was badly hurt towards the middle to end rounds as well, but he got through that and then ultimately managed to turn it around. All of these things lead to, because it come from a lack of concentration, and unfortunately I think that's going to happen from about the 4th round onwards in this fight. And then from there, I think there's going to be maybe 2 rounds, maximum 3 rounds of sustained pressure and punishment from Jai. He's not going to look to take it easy. He wants to make a statement. He wants to show the world this is his division, this is his time, and this is who he is. Get invested in him. And I do think the fight is going to end in a knockout around about between rounds 6 and rounds 8. The friend in me would love this to go to the cards, for Ellis to have that as a, you know, to say at least he made it to the final bell. but also I'm thinking I don't want him to go to the final bell, because I know even if he manages to make it there, physically he's going to be compromised afterwards. Like, no matter what way we shake it, like, he is going to take a beating in the ring on Saturday. So maybe it's better that the beating concludes earlier rather than later in the fight. So yeah, I'm predicting between rounds 6 to 8, Jarrell Opetaia KO, but with a very sort of, I guess, spirited effort from Zorro, especially sort of in rounds 1 to 3, 1 to 4. Now, arguably the fight of the night in terms of intrigue. This is a fight whereby I don't think anyone truly knows what's gonna happen, and I think that's what makes the best fights. Yeah, you have an A side, a B side, favorite, underdog, but this is a fight where most people feel like the underdog is actually the favorite and the bookies have got it crazy wrong. We're talking about Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Big Baby Miller. Now, forgetting all the stuff that happened in the past with Jarrell Miller, we all know about that. Served a 3.5, 4 year ban. You know, he's now back with another chance. He's been VADA tested rigorously, so at least for this moment in time, we don't have anything, I guess, to complain about in that sense. Historical is historical, but I guess, you know, you're allowed to do your time and come out of purgatory prison with a clean slate. That's what we're gonna do. On the other hand, you've got Daniel Dubois, who is 25 at the moment, I believe 25 or 26. So he's still a very fresh heavyweight relative to the majority of the division. Jarrell Miller, he, I believe, is 34, turning 35 very soon. And yeah, so he's obviously the big grizzled vet, so to speak. Now look, Jarrell, in the 3 fights I've seen him prior, since the ban, he looks like he's not throwing with the same volume that he used to, but the volume is still greater than the average heavyweight. So he has slowed down a bit. It looks like he's not necessarily gotten heavier in terms of weight, because he's roughly kind of the same weights he was before, but he just, yeah, like, the body composition is a little bit different now. Make of that what you will. Ultimately, this is going to be a fight whereby if Daniel Dubois can affect Jarrell Miller from the start, like from the first round, he needs to be able to land something very, very heavy on Jarrell Miller from the very first round to stop Jarrell Miller barreling forward, because he will sort of come forward, hands up, sort of blocking, you know, moving the arms and then getting into range and then trying to either pop a jab or throw some shots to the body, throw some hooks to the head. Now, if Daniel Dubois can prevent him from being super aggressive early, being super willing to just walk forward and take shots, then he can probably pick him off bit by bit, round by round, and manage to get a late stoppage when Jarrell Miller's gas tank looks like it's about to wear thin. He doesn't look the same force he used to in terms of being able to throw for all of 10 rounds, all of 12 rounds at a pace. He seems to look like he slows down a little bit now from about round 5, round 6 onwards. But that being said, if he's coming forward as the aggressive front foot fighter and he's not having to be pushed backwards, it's a lot easier to walk forward than it is to walk back, especially when you're tired. And if he's can keep Daniel Dubois basically having to move back or engage or having to get in a clinch, and you can sort of hold him and muscle him about and nestle him around, make no mistake, Jarrell Miller will be the stronger guy in the ring. Dubois is he's almost like a country strong young man, very svelte body, you know, his whole body is in proportion, very muscular, very sort of, you know, naturally strong, but Jarrell Miller is going to be the stronger of the two. If they get into clinches, Jarrell is going to be draining and just leaning all over Daniel Dubois, ripping little short shots on the inside. So this may also come down to a referee, that if they get a referee that will break them apart as soon as they touch, it's like a what's his name, Guido Vanello, someone like that, then Daniel is going to be in a much better place than if the referee allows them to work a bit on the inside before breaking them, because that is where Daniel's going to have his most problems for me. But the problem I have with this fight is Daniel Dubois is the naturally better athlete. He's got the better jab. I definitely think he hits harder, and I think he hits harder than anyone that Jarrell Miller has been in the ring with, even Lucas Brown. And his punches are a lot quicker as well than what Lucas Brown's punches were, and other people that Jarrell has been in the ring with. So, which means that if his defense isn't perfect, where he's able to sort of ride the shots, seeing them coming, if he sees them even a fraction late, he's going to attain more of that impact than he has against previous opponents. But even against like Lucas Brown, Bracamonte and such, like, he was still shipping shots. Like, he wasn't maybe getting caught flush all the time, but he was getting caught. The question is, can he take those shots? Now, so far, as I said, we've seen him be able to take them, but we've never seen him take power of someone like Daniel Dubois. But then on the other hand, we do know that his former kickboxing, like, he's been kicked in the head by some of the most dangerous kickboxers, MMA guys in the sport, and stayed on his feet. So maybe the punches, maybe he's just got that natural resolve where he's gonna just walk through it regardless. The question then comes, if Daniel Dubois can't affect him in the first 4 to 5 rounds, what's his engine going to be like after that? What's his mind going to be like after that? Is he going to capitulate similarly to how he did against Usyk, where he said that he got disheartened? That was his words after the things didn't go his way with the shot that was ruled low. He got disheartened, and then he just got basically picked apart from there. Well, if he can't beat up Jarrell Miller from the first round, is he going to get disheartened again? Is he going to find a way out ultimately? And at this point, purely because I don't know if he's going to be able to stick in there and, hold out and not capitulate and stay strong and stay till the end, I can't pick him. I have to also remember the Kevin Lerena fight. There was moments where it looked like he wanted to find a way out of that fight as well. And if it wasn't for Shane McGuigan, he might have. I don't know if Don Charles is the guy that is going to keep him motivated to stay in the fight if it's not going his way. That being said, if he does get through all of that, what if he's just taking a beating? And maybe either the towel comes in, or maybe he even survives the beating and gets legit knocked out. He doesn't fall to a knee, he takes a big power shot and gets slumped on the floor. That might be better for his mindset overall, but I don't know if he's got that. And because I don't know, as I said, I can't pick him. I have to go with the proven commodity that I know at this point in time, and that is that Jarrell Miller is going to be nearly 100 pounds heavier than him in the ring. I know he can take a shot, I know he can come forward, and I know he can throw at pace and at volume for several rounds at a time. Stylistically, Dubois does have the advantage over him, but the intangibles in this one lead me to believe that Jarrell Miller will win this fight, and I think he's going to win this fight by stoppage in and around somewhere between round 8 and round 11. If we go by the Usyk fight, I think the Usyk fight happened in the 10th, and the Joe Joyce fight, I believe, happened in the 11th. So if it's gonna happen, I think it will happen later on in the fight. But yeah, between rounds 8 and 11, I think is where this fight ends, and I do think Jarrell Miller is gonna get his hand raised. Not a popular opinion, but that's the pick. And last but not least, we've got the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker. I was actually gonna say his alias, but no, I'm gonna leave that one to David Diamante and Louis Stryber. I do know it, but I don't want to butcher it and piss off any of my Samoan watchers. That being said, this fight is a very intriguing fight to me. It's a fight of two former world champions, two legit former world champions. I mean, Deontay Wilder won his belt from a champion. We can talk about the quality of that champion all we like, but he did win the belt from the champ. And Joseph Parker won a vacant title, but he won it from Andy Ruiz Jr. And obviously, as we know, Andy Ruiz Jr. beat Anthony Joshua, relieved him of 3 belts before losing them back to Joshua in the rematch. So we know that there's credentials and credibility there. Now, this fight is been basically labeled around, can Deontay Wilder land that right hand? And as soon as he lands that right hand, you're gonna have Joseph Parker, sprawled out on the ground. Now, here's my sort of counter to that. This fight, I believe, is gonna have to be a fight that Deontay Wilder works to set up the right hand. He can't just basically look for that one split second. I don't think that is gonna work in this instance, purely because Joseph Parker is quite good. Number one, he is quite good at moving his head. He's never been a stationary target. He's got decent foot speed, although he has been getting a bit heavier in the last couple of years, so his foot speed could have decreased a little bit, but he's got decent movement. He's got a good solid boxing base in terms of his style, how he positions himself, but he's got very fast hands as well. Now, Deontay Wilder is going to have the range, he's going to have the reach, which means that ultimately Joseph Parker is either going to have to box right up on his chest and not allow him that space, or he's going to have to fight at range and basically try to ambush Wilder and then get in and out, but you can't fight him in the mid-range where Wilder can start to drive that punch through and get the leverage and get the full extension on the and have the impact catching him from sort of that mid-range all the way through to the end of the shot. Deontay Wilder, I feel, is going to have to use more of his boxing skills. He's going to have to stab jab to the body. He's going to have to try to take away Joseph Parker's legs. He's going to have to set up the right hand behind, like I would say behind sort of even pity patter or range finding jabs, just to sort of blind him, keep him turning. He's going to have to use his feet more. He's going to have to employ the left hook. He's going to have to even employ the right hook, maybe even the right uppercut. If Joseph Parker tries to dip the shot, dip down low as he does sometimes, you might have to come up the middle in order to land and then ultimately set him up for the right hand or the salvos that do take place. Now, if we look at a lot of Deontay Wilder's recent fights, I would say I'd probably say from the first Fury fight up to now, he's not active in the ring. Everything is about measuring his opponent, just waiting. When he has an opponent that basically gets close to him and makes him have to throw and have to fight them off, he gets extremely tired. His engine used to seem a lot better because obviously he was fighting at his own pace, even though he was throwing more punches. But when he's rushed, it almost feels like he panics, and when he panics, he throws these like get off me shots, which are very powerful, but I don't think his breathing doesn't necessarily correlate with the punches that he's throwing, and hence why in both the second and the third Fury fights, apart from the fact that Fury grabbed him and leaned all over him, but he was basically done from round 4 in both of those fights. The legs were tired, breathing with his mouth open, wide-eyed. You could just tell that things were getting to him. So how do I see this fight playing out? Well, look, as I said, a lot of people are just predicting that this right hand is going to land and it's going to lead. And to be honest, look, that does seem like the most logical solution, purely because regardless of what I've said about his levels of competition in the past, he has landed it on every single person. Not every single person has been knocked out, but you know, everyone has been knocked down at some point by him, and it is a dangerous weapon. I don't know to what level. Again, I need to see it against better opposition, and this will definitely be one of those where I can make a more accurate assessment. However, here's one thing that I do know. Joseph Parker has been hit flush by Anthony Joshua. He's been hit flush by Dillian White. He's been hit flush by Derek Chisora, obviously he even went down from a Derek Chisora shot, got back up. He does, he can seem to wear a bit of concussion if he gets caught in certain areas, but he has pretty good survival instincts. Obviously Carlos Takam as well. Now, none of these guys I'm saying maybe they don't all hit like Deontay Wilder, but he's been hit flush. He was hit repeatedly by Joe Joyce. If you remember, even though he got knocked out by Joe Joyce, it took Joyce 11 rounds of sustained beating and pressure and leaning and just draining Parker's gas tank. Plus Parker came into that fight way too heavy, but it still took 11 rounds for him to be able to get him out of there. Deontay Wilder is not going to be able to impose the same kind of pressure and size advantage that Joe Joyce did, because that's not his style. He's going to look for one shot. Even though Joseph Parker has been down officially, even though 3 times officially, but realistically it's 2. One by the left hook from Dillian White, which he got straight back up from, and the left hook from Joe Joyce, which, even to his credit, he did manage to make it back to his feet. He just happened to get to his feet at the at the count of 10, and at that point obviously the refs waved it off, but he was back up and he was lucid and almost ready to go again. So I have faith that if he does get caught with one shot, he can weather that shot. Even if he goes down, I believe he can get back up from that one shot. Now, do I think that Deontay Wilder can sustain, number one, sustain a pace that he won't get tired in? And do I think that he can sustain a beating from Joseph Parker if he lands the same type of shots that he was landing on Simon Keane and Derek Chisora and even Joe Joyce? Because there were several shots he threw at Joe Joyce. Anyone else, they go down. I don't think Wilder could have stood up to those shots. And in this moment, I'm a bit conflicted, but I have to give a prediction. The sensible money is on Deontay Wilder, but maybe with a little bit of bias in mind, not necessarily of who I like better, but whom I share certain traits with. I guess maybe even a little bit like Sonny Edwards last week. I'm going to give a little bit of extra grace to my Capricorn compatriot, and in this instance I actually think, and I've put this down in my predictions league, that Joseph Parker is actually going to cause the upset in this fight, and I think he's going to cause it by a late round stoppage. I think I put down round 10 or round 11, but anywhere between round sort of 8 to 11, I do think that Joseph Parker is going to get out of there. I think he's going to survive the right hands because Wilder's not a pressure guy. I think he can weather that. He's got that Samoan blood in him. Maybe he doesn't necessarily always show the warrior spirit, but he's never, I've never seen him like down and out and looking for a way out of a fight. So I think to beat him properly, you have to just bully him, batter him and rough him up, and that's just not Wilder's game. I think if anything, if they get close to each other, it will be more on the other side. Plus, Andy Lee is in the corner. He obviously knows, I guess, how to negate certain things. I could be totally wrong, but I know a lot of people are predicting that Wilder will win, so let me go against the grain on this particular one. I've thought for a while that Parker will be one to pull it off, and that's who I'm going with, so that is the pick. Now that's the end of part 1 for this. If you'll notice, I did all of the you know, the Pacific Islanders on this particular one, you know, Jarrell, Opetaia, Junior Farr and Joseph Parker. I was trying to maybe put it in a nice little way like that. But yeah, so if you guys are watching, big up to any Samoan, Maui, Polynesian subscribers. Back your people. That's who I'm picking. Let me know what you guys think. The next video will be out tomorrow, but for part 1, it's Basis Picks. Locked.